G'day mates, Ordinary Average Guy here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Liong Mah Designs KUF2. So this is the second iteration of the KUF design. It's a little bit smaller and it's also a flipper, whereas the original KUF is not. This is designed by Liong Mah, obviously, Liong Mah Designs. And he's a knife designer based out of Florida. I believe he was a pastry chef in New York for many years and decided to hang up the kitchen knife and start designing and making knives full time. He's designed knives for a slew of different companies, CRKT being one of them, but you can go look at some of his knife designs. He does these really sort of functional art pieces. And we'll get into that too. So I'm going to be doing a lot of comparisons today between the KUF and the Spydiechef. I think there's a lot of comparisons we can draw between these two knives. Both of them being knives that were designed to be able to be used in the kitchen, as well as being able to be used as a folder, an everyday folder. So the first thing we can compare between these two knives is the blade. This obviously, there's some subtle differences. The Spydiechef has a bit more of a belly. The KUF still has a nice big belly, but it has this really nice pointed tip here, which is, sort of very in line with the design of a kitchen knife. M390 is the blade steel on this thing. Full flat grind on it. It's sort of a modified sheep's foot reverse tonto. I don't know what you'd call it. I can't keep up with knife blade shapes these days. This knife, the Spydiechef sort of doesn't have that same point to it as this one does. And I'm going to tell you guys, this thing came razor sharp out of the box, shaving sharp out of the box. Nice even grind. You guys know how I feel about my grinds. Let me get these fingerprints off here. It's driving me crazy. But it's sort of hard to bugger up a grind on a knife that's this thin behind the edge. But I've seen it happen. But like I said, very even grind out of the box. So one of the things that sets the Spydiechef and the KUF apart is the design of the handle to the blade. So these things were designed, obviously with processing food in mind. So when you hold them, you'll notice that the handle sits well above the blade, as you can see with both of these. So when you're using them to cut with, especially doing slices, the blade is gonna hit the surface of the cut where you're cutting before your hand is, which is nice. And if you can compare that to something, say like this is the Hawk Flipper by Liong Mah, you can see this knife is not designed for kitchen use. You could use it in the kitchen, sure, but it's got a flipper tab sticking out here. The knife blade itself sits above the handle, so this is much more of a design for a traditional folder. One thing that really sets the KUF apart from the Spydiechef is the ergonomics. The handle is super ergonomic. They rounded every edge just beautifully. This huge backspacer in this thing. I mean, it runs down the length of the whole knife here, all the way down to the bottom, as you can see. And it makes for a really nice experience when you're holding this thing and using it, for cutting. The Spydiechef's ergonomic as well. It's got a great handle, but it's just a much clunkier experience in your hand. A lot of that has to do with the pocket clip. The design of this pocket clip, at first, I was a little turned off by this pocket clip. It's really small. It doesn't have much spring, and it's just sort of a pain in the butt to get in and out of the pocket. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that it's so short. They wanted to make, I don't know. I didn't ask Liong Mah. I'm sure that they had this in mind though. As you can see, it doesn't have much spring in it, like I said, and it's got this sort of point right here, so you really have to wedge it over your pocket. But I think that's designed so while this thing's in pocket, say if you sit down in a pair of jeans and it pushes the knife up, it's not going to pop out and come flying out of your pocket. And as you can see, I mean, it's about half the length of this wire clip here. But what that makes for is just a really, really nice experience in hand. Pocket clips obviously are going to be the biggest hotspot on any knife, especially with a wire clip like this on the Spydiechef. I mean, you feel this thing. It's just hot spotty all up here. There's a big hot spot there. I mean, that's the main thing you feel. Along with these edges here and stuff, they're just not as chamfered often and as well designed as this Liong Mah is. But the pocket clip itself is what you feel most in hand with that. With this, the pocket clip just you feel it, but not nearly as much. I mean, it just basically disappears right into the groove of your hand there, and to me it's beautifully designed, really well thought through, and I think it's like I said, function meets art, and it works really well. You can even see like this bottom part here is just really chamfered and rounded off really nicely, whereas you experience a really big hot spot with this guy right here. So, for me, I'm a big fan of the Spydiechef. But as far as function and use and ergonomics go, I think the KUF is just it's a step above what the Spydiechef offers. I'm gonna put the Spydiechef away for right now. So let's talk about the pièce de la résistance with this bad boy. As knife guys, we love action on knives. We love knives with good actions. Some guys like washers, right? Like the Spydiechef runs on washers. There's sort of a more intimate feeling with washers. There's sort of a hydraulic feel to the opening of the knife. Whereas with bearings, like with this guy runs on bearings, it just doesn't have that same feel. And a lot of guys don't like bearings because bearings can fail. If you hard use your knife, you can get grit down in there. The bearings can get crunchy. Whatever. But for me, the action on this thing is just beautiful. The detent on it is really, really well done. It just flies open, and the sound it makes is just amazing. So you got several different options for flipping this thing. The front flip, whoop. You've got the finger flip, like a traditional flipper. You've got the Spidey flick. That's obligatory these days, I'm sure. You got to be able to do that with your knives. And you got the thumb flick. So you got 4 different opening options. Well, 5 really, because you can just regular open it. Although that detent's a little dialed in. You can regular open it as well. But just a really fun knife to open. When I first got this thing, I just sat there flipping the shit out of it. Bugged my wife to death. But just the sound it makes is just awesome. And a big part of that is just the design of this pivot. So there's only a single stop pin in this knife, and a lot of knives only have one stop pin, but that'll come into play here in a second. So as you can see, there's a stop pin right there. Ooh, I need to clean that out. Little gunky there, guys. My bad. So as you can see, this is the top of the blade right here. The flipper's right here. So underneath the flipper, there's a groove that will go up and over that stop pin right there. So as the knife pivots around, the back of the tang here is going to hit that stop pin. But at the same time, the flipper tab here hits this, the lock bar. And you can see this little knob right here. That goes back into the groove. And it just makes for this beautiful, solid lockup and just a really nice sound when you open it. Now, there is no lock bar insert in this thing. It's just titanium on steel, but they did such a good job of rounding, and just the design of the tang right here. You don't get any lock stick, which isn't the case with the Spydiechef. The Spydiechef, you get a lot of lock stick. It's a great lockup, but you just feel that thing stick the whole way, which I don't mind. It's not going to destroy the experience for me. Spydiechef's a great knife, but there's zero lock stick in this thing, even without the lock bar insert. So, it's just a great experience to flip this thing. It really is so much fun, man. If you guys get one, you'll sit there for hours, and the sound it makes that when it locks into place is just a beautiful thing. So look, guys, I mean, there's a couple drawbacks to this guy. First of all, like I mentioned, the pocket clip takes a little getting used to, but when you realize just the functionality of it, you don't really seem to mind it. It is running on bearings. I don't care about that. Some people do. Just so you know, it does run on bearings. I'm not really, I just not blown away by this guy right here. It just sort of looks a little like alien or cartoony. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Snorks when you were a kid. I'm dating myself there. The snorks, there were these underwater animals that had this sort of thing on the top of their head. Every time I see it, it reminds me of the snorks. I wish they'd done something a little different with it, but I don't know what. I don't know what they could have done. This is sort of function over form here with this thing. I just think it works so well. I don't know what else you could have done differently. Just to me though, it does look a little cartoony. Another big drawback of this thing, guys, is it's $400 knife. Now, it's for me, I don't buy $400 knives, and if I'm not completely blown away by them, they're going back. There's no questions asked. They're going back. If I'm not 100% in love with the knife, well, not in love, but you know what I mean, love the knife, I'm going to send it back. This one right here blew me away. I loved it. Just everything about it, just the sound it makes when it opens, just the function of this blade, the ergonomics of the handle, just the way that they design the clip to just fit perfectly in your hand. This beautiful titanium backspacer here. This even down to the hardware, this nice thick beefy T8 hardware. I hate it when people use T6 and use this chintzy hardware that just is bound to strip out. It's just really well put together. And if you take one of these screws out, you just see how well machined they are. And even down to this pivot collar here, you think when you look at it, you're going to have to get some proprietary tool from Liong Mah Designs. That's just a Torx bit. I'm sure they do have a proprietary bit for it, but you don't need it. You can just use a Torx bit. You can see they use it in a lot of their knives. I don't know if they use it in all of them, but they use it in a lot of them. And, they just... Liong Mah makes these really just gorgeous knives, and function meets art. I mean, they're just gorgeous. They're nice to play with. They look great, really super sharp. I love sharp knives. I love it when you get a knife out of the box and you don't have to sharpen it. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. So overall, I really dig this knife. I really like it. If you can get over the fact that you have to pay, $400 for it, then, it's well worth the money. You can probably find them on the secondary market for a lot less than that. This is the lefty version. I forgot to mention that. This is the lefty version. Obviously, if you couldn't tell by now, I'm not doing this video in a mirror. But if you are watching this video and you don't like lefty knives, watch it in a mirror and you'll feel better about it immediately. So there you go. I love this knife, guys. And if you don't want to spend $400 on a knife, this one is about $200. They're very hard to find though. But I definitely recommend both of them highly. But today we're talking about the KUF2, and I recommend it highly. I think for if you're willing to spend that amount of money, it's well worth it. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate all your watching. If you could go ahead and subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate that. I put out content when I can. It's going to be a lot more soon, but if you want to follow me on the Instagram, I'll put it right here. I am posting pictures all the time of knives, and I do little reviews on Instagram sometimes as well. And I appreciate each and every single one of you, and just thank you so much for watching, and I hope you watch the next one. Thank you.